Sometimes destruction doesn't come with thunder. Sometimes it comes with a rented key. And a silence that grows too loud to ignore. They say when the devil wants to destroy a man, he first gives him everything he ever prayed for, just to show him how little those things truly matter. At first, life with Zara felt like a dream come true. Every morning, she filled Chidi's new apartment with music and perfume. She danced barefoot while making breakfast, wearing his shirt, her laughter echoing against the walls like freedom. She was young, beautiful, and wild, everything Ngozi was not. Chidi felt alive again. For the first time in years, someone called him babe, and made it sound like he was 25 again. He told himself he deserved it. This excitement, this attention, this new life. When he looked at Zara, he saw adventure. When he looked at Ngozi, he saw routine. He didn't realize yet that peace and boredom are sometimes the same thing, just seen through different eyes. Zara took him to places he had only seen on TV. Lounges in Victoria Island, rooftop dinners, late-night boat rides under the Lagos moon. She wore red lipstick and confidence. Everywhere they went, people turned to look, and Chidi's chest swelled with pride. He started wearing brighter clothes, spraying stronger perfume, and speaking louder in public. He was a man who had tasted attention, and he wanted more of it. Sometimes, while sitting across from her at dinner, he'd watch how easily she fit into this world, how she ordered wine without checking the price, how she laughed with strangers like they'd known her forever. She was magnetic, and he was addicted. But beauty, like fire, always burns those who get too close. Zara's light began to flicker. It started with small things. A sigh when he didn't send money on time. A cold silence when he came home too early. And a new perfume smell on her clothes that wasn't the one he bought her. Chidi ignored it at first. He told himself, women like her get moody. He didn't know that what he called mood was actually manipulation. Meanwhile, back in Suralere, Ngozi's world was shrinking. The salon that once buzzed with laughter now felt heavy. Clients came and went, but she barely smiled anymore. She still wore her wrapper neatly, still tied her headscarf perfectly, but her eyes had lost their light. Sometimes she would sit by the window at night, staring at the streetlight that flickered outside their gate. It reminded her of her marriage, still standing, but fading. Jay, now more observant, had begun to ask questions she couldn't answer. Mummy, why does Daddy live in another house? She'd pause, her heart tightening. He's working, my son. But can he work from here? She'd force a smile. When you're older, you'll understand. But even Jay could sense something was wrong. He stopped drawing happy pictures of the family. His latest crayon sketch showed two houses, one small and bright, one big and dark. When Ngozi saw it, tears filled her eyes. Zara's world, on the other hand, was a whirlwind. She loved attention, loved being seen with Chidi in public. Sometimes she'd hold his hand in restaurants just to make sure others noticed. She posted pictures of wine glasses and fancy shoes with captions like, "A queen deserves her king." Chidi would scroll through the comments later, feeling proud. It didn't occur to him that Zara never once tagged him. Her posts were for show, for the next man watching, not for love. As the months passed, Chidi began to feel something strange, emptiness. He had everything he thought he wanted. A beautiful woman, luxury, freedom. But when the lights went off and the laughter faded, silence filled the room, a silence that echoed louder than the noise of the city outside. Sometimes, late at night, he'd lie awake beside Zara and think of Ngozi's voice, soft, prayerful, peaceful. He'd remember Jay's laughter, the smell of home-cooked food, the warmth of belonging. Then he'd roll over, trying to drown the memories with sleep. But memories don't drown. They wait. One evening, as Chidi returned from work, Zara greeted him at the door, arms crossed, face hard. "Where were you?" she asked sharply. He blinked. "Work. I told you I had a client meeting." She scoffed. "Don't lie to me, Chidi. You didn't even pick up your phone." He frowned. "Zara, I was busy." She stepped closer, eyes blazing. "Busy doing what?" Talking to your wife? He froze. Don't bring Ngozi into this. Zara laughed bitterly. Oh, so now she's Ngozi again? Not my dear? Don't forget you left her for me. You chose this life, remember? He clenched his jaw. I didn't leave her for you. Things just happened. She smirked. Things don't just happen, Chidi. People make them happen. He sighed, rubbing his forehead. I'm too tired for this. She turned away, grabbing her handbag. Then rest alone. She slammed the door behind her, leaving him standing in silence. For the first time, Chidi didn't chase after her. He sat down slowly on the couch, his heart pounding. He looked around the apartment, the new curtains, the glass table, the expensive rug, and for the first time, it all felt meaningless. He thought of Ngozi again, her tired eyes, her calm smile even when she was hurting. He wondered if she had eaten that night. He wondered if Jay still asked about him. He wanted to call, but guilt froze his hand. He didn't know what to say. That night, when Zara returned, she was in a playful mood again, as if nothing had happened. She kissed him lightly, whispered, "Sorry for shouting," and handed him a new shirt she had bought. Chidi smiled weakly, but inside, something felt wrong. The peace he once knew was gone. What he had now was pleasure, noisy, shallow, and fleeting. He was surrounded by beauty, yet he felt lonelier than ever. Back in Suralere, Ngozi lay awake, unable to sleep. She stared at the empty space beside her on the bed. She had stopped waiting for Chidi to come home early. She no longer expected calls or explanations. Instead, she prayed for him, not because she hoped he'd return, but because she didn't want to hate him. In her quiet heart, she whispered, "Lord, even if he never comes back, don't let bitterness live inside me." Tears rolled down her face as thunder rumbled in the distance. Outside, the night wind howled, carrying her prayers into the city. To a man sitting in another woman's arms, wishing he could silence the emptiness echoing inside him. They both couldn't sleep that night. One because of guilt. The other because of heartbreak. And as Lagos carried on, unaware, the distance between them grew so wide that even prayers had to travel far to find their way back. Sometimes, what looks like freedom is just a well-decorated cage. And the woman who calls you babe can still be the one tightening the chains around your soul. There is a moment when every sweet thing begins to taste bitter. For Chidi, that moment came quietly, with bills he couldn't pay and a woman he couldn't satisfy. The morning light crept into the apartment through cream curtains Zara had chosen. She lay in bed, scrolling through her phone, her long red nails tapping against the screen. Chidi stood at the mirror, knotting his tie, watching her through the reflection. "Zara, are you not going out today?" he asked softly. She yawned. "Later. I'm meeting Ada and Kemi for lunch at Eco Hotel." He nodded, tightening his tie. "Okay. You have enough cash?" She smiled without looking up. Maybe. But you know how expensive that place is. Just small something for shopping after." He hesitated. He had already given her money 2 days ago, but he didn't want an argument. He took out his wallet and handed her some notes. She looked up, finally kissed his cheek, and said, "Thank you, my king." The words made him feel proud again. That's how she worked, with simple sentences that stroked a man's ego while slowly emptying his pockets. At first, the spending didn't bother him. He wanted her to be happy. He bought her clothes, perfumes, phones. He told himself it was love. But soon, the numbers in his account began to whisper warnings. Transfers. Credit alerts that never lasted. Bills piling up like shadows he refused to face. When Zara wanted a new phone, he bought it. When she said, "Let's travel to Abuja for the weekend," he paid for the tickets. When she said, "My friend is having a birthday, I can't go looking cheap," he sent her money for a new dress. Every time, she rewarded him with laughter, attention, and touch, the illusion of love that cost more than he could afford. Meanwhile, at home in Suralere, Ngozi was learning how to live like a woman left behind. The salon still opened each morning, but business had slowed. Her generator had broken down, and she couldn't afford to fix it. She smiled through each day, but her eyes told the truth of a woman holding a house together with nothing but prayer and pride. Jay had outgrown most of his school uniforms. The school sent a reminder about unpaid fees. Ngozi folded the paper quietly and placed it in her Bible, the only safe place she had left. At night, she would look at Chidi's side of the bed and whisper, "Lord, if he is lost, remind him where home is." She didn't know that even as she prayed, her husband was signing another transfer, this time for Zara's latest business idea. One evening, Chidi sat in the apartment's small living room, scrolling through his bank app. His throat went dry. His savings account, the one he'd built for years, was almost empty. Zara walked out of the bedroom, humming a song, wearing a short red dress. "Babe," she said sweetly, "we're going to a friend's birthday. Hope you don't mind." He forced a smile. "Another party?" She frowned. "You sound like an old man. It's just one night. You should come with me." "I can't. I have early work tomorrow." She pouted. "Okay, don't worry. I'll go alone." She leaned down, kissed his cheek, and said, "I'll send you pictures." The door closed behind her. And in that silence, Chidi finally saw the truth. He wasn't part of her world. He was just funding it. He slumped back on the couch, running his hands through his hair. For the first time, guilt crept in, heavy and uncomfortable. He thought of Ngozi's quiet voice, of Jay's small hands, of the home that used to feel alive. He picked up his phone and scrolled through his photos. There it was, an old picture of Ngozi and Jay laughing at the salon, both faces lit with pure joy. His chest tightened. He typed a message. "Ngozi, how are you and Jay doing?" He stared at it for a while, then deleted it. He didn't have the courage to send it. The next morning, Chidi woke up to Zara shouting on the phone. "Are you mad? That's not the amount we agreed on," she barked, pacing the room. He watched her quietly. Her voice, once sweet, now sounded sharp, impatient, demanding. When she hung up, she turned to him and sighed dramatically. "Some people don't respect money. Anyway, babe, I need you to send me something small. Just $200K. I'll refund you next week." He blinked. "Zara, I don't have that kind of money right now." She frowned. "How can you say that? You're a big man. Things are tight. I've been covering too many expenses." Her expression changed instantly, from charm to irritation. "So what are you saying? You can't take care of me anymore?" He sighed. "Zara, please." "Please what?" She snapped. "You think I'm with you for free? You said you'd make me happy. Is this happiness?" He stared at her, stunned. The words hit him like a slap. She grabbed her bag. "When you figure out what you want, call me." She slammed the door behind her. And just like that, Chidi's dream world cracked. That evening, he drove around Lagos aimlessly. The traffic roared. The lights blurred. He didn't know where to go. For a moment, he almost turned toward Surulere, toward the home he once shared with Ngozi and Jay. But pride turned the wheel the other way. He told himself it was too late to go back. Back home, Ngozi and Jay sat at the table, eating quietly. There was no meat in the soup that night, but Jay didn't complain. He just looked up and said, "Mommy, when is Daddy coming home?" Ngozi forced a smile. "He's coming soon." Jay nodded sleepily, then whispered, "I'll keep my meat for him." She watched him drift off to sleep, her heart shattering into 1,000 pieces. Days later, Zara returned as if nothing had happened. She hugged Chidi, called him baby, and said, "I was just angry that day. You know I love you, right?" He wanted to believe her. He wanted to feel loved again. So he smiled, hugged her back, and whispered, "I know." But deep inside, he didn't believe it. Because love doesn't keep a man broke and guilty. Love doesn't make a man forget his son's birthday. Love doesn't turn a home into an empty apartment. Still, he stayed. Because the cage he built had become too familiar to leave. That night, as he stared at the ceiling beside Zara's sleeping form, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Ngozi. "Good evening, Chitty. Jay has been coughing badly. I can't reach you. Please send something for his drugs." His chest tightened. He looked at Zara, sleeping peacefully beside him. Then back at the message. He typed, "Okay. I'll send it tomorrow." But he didn't. He fell asleep instead, his heart heavy, unaware that every minute of delay was building the tragedy that would soon shatter his life completely. Sometimes, it's not sin that kills a man first. It's the comfort of getting away with it. And for Chitty, comfort was becoming his curse. There's a point in every man's downfall when life stops whispering and starts shouting. For Chitty, the shouting came in numbers, red ones. Numbers that didn't lie, didn't hide, didn't forgive. It was a Monday morning. The office buzzed with noise, phones ringing, printers humming, people rushing between desks. Chitty sat at his corner, staring blankly at the computer screen, pretending to work. His bank app was still open on his phone. Balance, 42,000 Nigerian nairas. He blinked twice, hoping it would change. It didn't. How? Just 3 months ago, he had more than 2 million Nigerian nairas saved. Now it was gone, eaten by Zara's lifestyle and his own pride. He rubbed his forehead, frustration crawling through him. He thought of the rent for the apartment, the bills, Zara's endless requests. He hadn't sent money home in almost 2 months. Even Jay's school fees were still unpaid. Ngozi had stopped asking. For the first time, guilt sat with him like a shadow. But before he could think too long, his boss, Mr. Odogwu, called out, "Chitty! Come to my office." Inside, the air felt thick. The boss was sitting behind his glass desk, holding a file. His expression was unreadable. "Sit down," he said quietly. Chitty obeyed, nerves tightening. Odogwu opened the file and tapped a printed sheet with his pen. "Your last 3 project accounts, they're not adding up." Chitty froze. "Sir? There are irregular transfers," the man continued. "Funds moved without approval. Almost 1.8 million Nigerian nairas missing from the closing balance." Chitty's throat went dry. I can explain," he stammered. "It was an urgent payment." "Without documentation?" Odogwu interrupted sharply. "Who authorized it?" Chitty looked down, his voice trembling. "I was going to replace it, sir. It was personal emergency." Odogwu leaned back slowly, disappointment clouding his eyes. "Chitty, I trusted you. You were one of my best. Sir, please. I'll fix it. I'll repay it." The man sighed. "This is business, not church. We can't survive on promises." He closed the file and said quietly, "You're suspended until the audit is complete." Those words felt like thunder. Chitty sat frozen, his mouth dry, his heartbeat thundering in his ears. "Sir, please." Odogwu shook his head. "I like you, Chitty. But numbers don't lie. Go home, think about what went wrong." Chitty walked out of the office like a ghost. The air outside felt heavier than ever. He sat in his car for almost an hour, staring at nothing. Suspended. The word echoed in his head. He picked up his phone and called Zara. "Babe," he said weakly. "Can we talk?" Her voice came sharp through the line. "Talk? About what?" "I'm busy, Chitty. I told you I'm getting my nails done. It's important." She sighed. "Can it wait?" "No," he whispered. She groaned. "Fine. I'll come over later." He sat there, staring at his reflection in the rearview mirror. A man who had once been respected, now a liar, a thief, a fool for love that wasn't real. At home, Ngozi was trimming a customer's hair when her phone vibrated. It was a message from Chitty, short, cold. "Don't worry about Jay's fees. I'll handle it soon." She smiled faintly, not knowing the truth behind the words. She sent a quick reply. "Thank you. We're fine here." But as she worked, a strange feeling washed over her, like something was about to go terribly wrong. That evening, Zara arrived at the apartment, glittering as usual. "Babe," she greeted cheerfully. "What's wrong? You sound tense on the phone." Chidi stood by the window, hands in his pockets. "I've been suspended." She blinked. "Suspended? For what?" "Office audit. Some funds I'd borrowed, things didn't add up." Zara frowned. "So what does that mean?" "It means I might lose my job if I don't replace the money." She stared at him for a moment, then shrugged. "So what are you going to do about it?" He looked at her, confused. "Zara, I thought you'd be worried." She rolled her eyes. "I'm worried, but me worrying won't solve it, will it?" Her tone was flat, cold, a far cry from the sweet woman who used to call him king. "Zara, please," he said softly. "I just need you to be here for me. Things are tough right now." She crossed her arms. "Chidi, I didn't sign up for tough. You're supposed to be a man who has things under control." He frowned. "Are you saying you're leaving me?" "I'm saying I can't be with someone drowning in problems." He took a step forward, voice breaking. "Zara, I did everything for you. I gave you everything." She smirked. "Then maybe that's the problem. You gave too much." She picked up her purse and walked toward the door. "Where are you going?" "Out. To breathe." The door closed. The echo stayed. That night, Chidi sat in the dark, his phone lighting up occasionally with bank alerts, all withdrawals, no deposits. He stared at the ceiling, feeling the weight of his choices pressing down on him. His phone buzzed again, a message from Ngozi. "Jay is coughing again. I don't have enough for drugs. Please, even 5,000 Nigerian nairas will help." He closed his eyes, shame flooding him. He had nothing to send. The man who once fed 2 homes could no longer care for his own child. He whispered into the darkness. "God, what have I done?" No answer came. Only silence. The kind that punishes louder than any voice. The next morning, Zara didn't come back. He tried calling, but her phone was off. By evening, he drove past her friend's house and saw her, laughing in another man's car, head thrown back in carefree joy. His heart sank. The woman he had lost everything for had already moved on. He parked by the roadside, his hands trembling on the steering wheel. Tears filled his eyes, hot, shameful tears. He covered his face and whispered, "Ngozi warned me. God warned me. But I refused to listen." For the first time since his marriage began to crumble, Chidi felt true fear, the fear of a man who realizes that the punishment he deserves has already begun. That night, he didn't go home. He drove aimlessly through Lagos, stopping near the lagoon bridge. The water was dark and endless. He leaned on his car, the wind cold against his face. He thought of Jay, his laughter, his drawings, his tiny voice calling, "Daddy!" He thought of Ngozi, her prayers, her patience, her faith. And he thought of himself, a man who traded peace for pleasure, and ended up losing both. When he finally got back to the apartment, he sat on the floor and wept until his body shook. He wasn't crying for money or even for Zara. He was crying for everything he destroyed, with his own hands. Meanwhile, in Suralere, Ngozi knelt beside Jay's bed, wiping his forehead with a damp cloth. He was burning with fever, his breathing shallow. "Please, my son," she whispered. "Stay with me." Jay coughed weakly and murmured, "Mummy, where's Daddy?" Her tears dropped onto his blanket. "He's coming, my love," she said softly. "He's coming." But even as she said it, she knew she was lying. Because sometimes people don't return, not because they can't, but because shame won't let them. And far away, as the city slept, 2 prayers floated into the night. One from a woman begging for her child's life, and one from a man begging for forgiveness. Only one of them would be answered. The rain started before dawn that morning. It fell quietly at first, like the sky itself was whispering a warning. A warning Ngozi could not yet understand. Jay had been coughing all night. His small body trembled with every breath. Ngozi sat beside him on the bed, holding a wet towel to his forehead, whispering softly, "You'll be fine, my love. Mommy is here. But deep inside, she was breaking. The fever wasn't ordinary. He was too weak, his eyes too pale. She picked up her phone and stared at the screen. No missed calls, no messages. She tried calling Chidi again, even though she already knew how it would go. It rang once, then stopped. She tried again. This time, it went straight to voicemail. Her tears fell silently. She didn't even bother to wipe them. There was no one left to see them anymore. At sunrise, she wrapped Jay in a blanket and carried him to a small clinic nearby. The nurse took one look at him and frowned. "Madam, this child is very weak. Why did you wait so long?" Ngozi's lips trembled. "I've been treating him at home. I didn't know it was this bad." The nurse sighed. "We'll do our best. But you'll need to deposit something for his treatment." Ngozi opened her purse. There were a few crumpled notes, barely enough for transport fare. She whispered, "I'll find the money. Please, just help him." The nurse nodded. "We'll put him on a drip first." As the needle slid into Jay's small arm, Ngozi turned away. She couldn't bear to see her son suffer because of a father who had once promised to protect them both. Back in the apartment across town, Chidi was pacing restlessly. He hadn't slept well in days. Zara was gone again. She'd packed a bag that morning, saying she needed space. His phone buzzed. It was Ngozi. He hesitated, guilt eating at him. He picked up. "Hello?" Her voice was weak, trembling. "Chidi, it's Jay. He's very sick. Please, we're at the clinic. I don't know what to do." He froze. The sound of her crying stabbed through him. I'll come," he said quickly. "Send me the address." She whispered something between sobs and ended the call. For the first time in months, Chidi didn't think, he just moved. He grabbed his car keys and ran out into the rain. The drive through Lagos felt endless. Every red light, every puddle, every blaring horn tested his patience. By the time he reached the small clinic in Surulere, he was soaked and shaking. He ran inside, scanning the hall. Then he saw her, Ngozi, sitting on a plastic chair, her wrapper damp, her hair messy, her eyes swollen from crying. Beside her, on a small hospital bed, lay Jay, his tiny chest rising and falling slowly. Chidi froze at the sight. The air in his lungs turned heavy. He walked toward them, his voice cracking. "Ngozi!" She looked up. For a moment, she just stared, disbelief, anger, relief, and pain all mixed in her eyes. He knelt beside her. "How is he?" Her lips quivered. "He's weak. The doctor said his body is dehydrated. I begged them to start treatment. I told them you were coming." Chidi reached out and touched Jay's small hand. It was warm, too warm. "Daddy," Jay whispered weakly, his eyes fluttering open. Chidi's heart broke. "I'm here, my son. Daddy's here." The boy smiled faintly. "You came. I'll always come," Chidi whispered, though even he knew it was a lie. They sat in silence for hours. The rain outside grew heavier, pounding against the roof like grief itself. Ngozi prayed quietly, her hands clasped tightly. Chidi sat beside her, his mind spiraling with regret. He thought of every moment he had ignored her calls. Every night he'd spent in Zara's arms while his family cried alone. When the nurse came back, she said softly, "We'll need to run more tests. The fever is not dropping. Please deposit something for the lab." Chidi nodded quickly. "I'll transfer it right now." He opened his phone, balance 18,000 Nigerian nairas. His stomach twisted. He whispered, "Can I pay part now?" The nurse frowned. "We need at least 40,000 Nigerian nairas to start." Ngozi turned to him slowly. "You don't have it?" He swallowed hard. I will find it." Her eyes filled with tears. "Find it, Chidi. Please find it." He ran outside, calling everyone he knew, colleagues, friends, even Zara. No one answered. He texted Zara desperately. "Please, I need help. My son is sick. I just need 50,000 Nigerian nairas. She read it but didn't reply. He called again. The line was busy. He sank to his knees beside the car, rain washing down his face. He didn't know if it was rainwater or tears anymore. God, please, not my son, he whispered. Punish me, but not him. When he walked back inside, Ngozi was still at Jay's bedside. The doctor stood near the door, his face grave. We're trying, but he needs oxygen now. If he doesn't stabilize soon, we'll have to move him to a bigger hospital. Chidi's chest tightened. Please do whatever you can. I'll get the money. But deep down, he knew the truth. He had nothing left. Ngozi looked at him again, tears streaming down her face. Chidi, this is our child. The same one who used to wait at the door for you every evening. How did we get here? He couldn't answer. He just stood there shaking. By nightfall, the fever worsened. Jay's breathing grew slower. Ngozi held his hand, praying through tears. Chidi stood by the wall, helpless, watching his world fall apart in front of him. Then, suddenly, the room grew quiet. The monitor's beeping slowed. The nurse rushed in, shouting orders. Doctor! Doctor! Ngozi screamed. What's happening? Chidi ran forward. Jay! My son! The doctor pushed them aside gently, working quickly, but the truth was already written on his face. After a few moments, he stopped. He looked at them quietly and said, I'm sorry, we tried. The words didn't make sense at first. Ngozi shook her head, clutching her son's body. No. No! He was fine this morning. He was fine! Chidi fell to his knees beside her, his eyes wide with horror. He reached out, touching Jay's cold hand, whispering, My boy! Daddy's sorry. The rain outside grew louder, angry, merciless. Hours later, Ngozi sat in silence, rocking Jay's small body in her arms. She didn't speak. She didn't cry anymore. Her tears were finished. Chidi sat across from her, shaking uncontrollably. He wanted to speak, to explain, to beg, but there were no words left that could undo what he had done. He had chased pleasure. He had chased pride. And in return, life had taken from him the one thing that truly mattered. When morning came, Ngozi stood slowly. Her voice was soft but sharp as glass. Chidi, you can go. He looked up, stunned. Ngozi. She shook her head. You can go. There's nothing left for you to destroy. He reached for her, but she stepped back. Tears filled his eyes as he whispered, Please, don't send me away. I've lost everything. She looked at him with hollow eyes. You didn't lose everything, Chidi. You gave it away. Then she turned and walked out of the room, her small frame carrying a pain far too heavy for one heart. Chidi remained there, kneeling beside the bed, holding Jay's cold hand. He whispered through his tears, If I could trade my life for yours, I would. I swear I would. But life doesn't trade. It only teaches, brutally, painfully, and too late. Outside, the rain finally stopped. But inside Chidi, the storm had just begun. The sky was gray that morning, either light nor dark, just empty. It was as if even the heavens refused to pick a side between sorrow and silence. Jay's small coffin looked unreal. Too small to hold a life so bright. Too small to carry all the laughter that had once filled their home. Ngozi sat on the old wooden bench at the front of the church, her eyes dry. She had cried through the night, through the dawn, through the early morning light. There were no tears left. Around her, neighbors whispered, women shook their heads, and men muttered, May God comfort her. But no comfort reached her. Her world had ended quietly, and she was just sitting there, breathing because she had no choice. Chidi stood at the back of the church, trembling. He could not bring himself to move closer. He wore a simple black shirt, soaked in rain and sweat. People avoided looking at him. They knew the story. They knew what he had done. The man who had once been a respected consultant was now just a ghost standing among the living, haunted by his own decisions. He watched as Ngozi's hands rested on the small coffin, her lips moving silently. He didn't need to hear the words to know what she was saying. She was saying goodbye. When the pastor called him forward to say a few words, his feet refused to move. But the silence of the room forced him to. He walked slowly to the front, every step heavier than the last. He stood before the coffin, his hands shaking, his voice barely there. "My son," he began, his lips quivering. "My boy who used to call me every morning. My light, my joy." His voice broke. He wiped his face, but the tears kept coming. "I thought I was chasing success. I thought I was building a better life. But I was wrong. I was building my own grave, one lie at a time." The crowd was silent, except for Ngozi's quiet sobs. Chidi continued, his voice cracking with pain. "I left my wife when she needed me most. I turned my back on my son. And now, I have no one left to call me daddy." He fell to his knees beside the coffin, crying so hard his body shook. The pastor tried to lift him, but he pushed the man's hand away. "Let me mourn what I killed with my own hands," he shouted. The sound echoed through the hall, raw, broken, unforgettable. After the service, they went to the burial ground behind the church. The air smelled of wet soil and salt. The rain had stopped, but the earth was still soft and heavy. As they lowered the coffin, Ngozi stood still, her lips trembling but no sound coming out. Chidi reached for her hand, but she pulled away. He whispered, "Ngozi, please." She turned to him, eyes red, voice cold. "You came back too late, Chidi." He nodded slowly. "I know. Jay waited for you," she continued softly. "Every night. Even when he was too weak to sit, he still said, 'Daddy will come.' And you didn't." Chidi's heart broke again. "I'm sorry," he whispered. She looked at him for a long moment, then said quietly, "Your sorry won't bring him back." And with that, she turned away. That night, Chidi went back to his empty apartment. Zara was there, lounging on the couch, painting her nails. He stood at the door, drenched in mud and sorrow. She looked up casually. "You look terrible. Where have you been?" He didn't answer. He just dropped to his knees, his hands covering his face. She sighed. "Oh, not again, Chidi. Are we doing this guilt thing tonight?" He lifted his head slowly, his eyes hollow. "My son is dead, Zara." She froze, the nail-polish bottle slipping from her hand. He continued, voice shaking. "He died in a small clinic because I was too busy buying you perfumes and paying for your clothes. He called for me, and I wasn't there." Zara stared at him, unsure what to say. Finally, she whispered, "Chidi, I didn't mean." "Don't say anything," he interrupted, his voice suddenly cold. "Don't pretend to care now. You were never here for me. You were here for what I could give you." He stood up slowly, his shoulders trembling. "Take your things," he said quietly. "Take all of them and leave." Zara looked at him in shock. "You can't talk to me like that." "I said get out," he shouted, his voice shaking the walls. She grabbed her bag, muttering under her breath, and left. The sound of the door slamming echoed through the apartment like thunder. When the silence returned, Chidi walked into the bedroom and collapsed on the floor. He looked around, the expensive curtains, the glittering lights, the cold emptiness. Nothing felt real anymore. He whispered to himself, "This place took everything from me." Then he broke completely. He wept until his chest hurt, until his voice was gone. The apartment that once smelled of perfume and laughter now smelled of loss and regret. The next morning, he went back to the church. The grave was still fresh, the soil damp and dark. He sat there for hours, talking to his son as if he were listening. "Jay," he whispered, "Daddy is sorry. I promise I'll never let pride blind me again. I'll live every day remembering you, and I'll protect your mother with whatever is left of me." The wind blew softly, as if the boy's spirit was listening. Chidi stayed there until nightfall. And when he finally walked away, he didn't look back. Back home, Ngozi sat in silence. The house was too quiet now. No laughter, no footsteps, no tiny voice calling, "Mummy!" But for the first time in weeks, she felt something small, not joy, not relief, but peace. Because the storm had finally ended. She whispered softly to herself, "I forgive him, Lord. Not because he deserves it, but because I can't carry this pain forever." Far away, Chidi walked through the streets of Lagos with nothing but guilt and rain for company. He had lost everything, his wife, his child, his career, his pride. But somewhere deep inside, something was shifting. He was finally learning that sometimes, life doesn't destroy you to punish you. It destroys you to rebuild you. That night, he slept on the floor of his empty apartment, whispering his son's name like a prayer. And as sleep finally came, a small tear rolled down his face. The last tear of a man who had finally learned that the most painful forgiveness is the one you give yourself. Morning found Chidi still on the floor. He hadn't really slept. The night had simply passed over him like a long punishment. The air inside the apartment smelled of stale wine and sorrow. Empty bottles stood in the corner, like witnesses that had watched him fall. He pushed himself up slowly. The silence was unbearable. No Zara humming a song. No Jay's laughter echoing in his mind. Only the memory of the small coffin being lowered into the ground. He walked to the mirror and stopped. The man staring back looked like a stranger. Eyes sunken, face hollow, beard rough. He used to admire his reflection. Now he could barely meet his own eyes. He forced himself to the office that morning. The receptionist glanced at him nervously. "Sir, the manager asked to see you." He nodded, already knowing what it meant. Inside, Mr. Odegwa's expression was heavy. He gestured to a chair. "Sit down, Chidi." Chidi obeyed quietly. "I'm sorry," Odegwa began. "But the audit committee concluded the review. The irregular funds can't be explained, and clients are asking questions." He paused, sighing. "We're terminating your appointment, effective immediately." Chidi closed his eyes. The words didn't surprise him. He simply nodded. "I understand." Odegwa looked at him a moment longer, his tone softening. "You were a good man, Chidi. I don't know what happened to you." Chidi's voice was barely a whisper. "I lost focus, and then I lost everything else." He stood up, shook his boss's hand, and walked out. No arguments, no tears, just quiet acceptance. Because when a man has buried his child, losing a job no longer feels like the end of the world. Days turned into weeks. He sold his car first. Then the expensive wristwatches, the shoes, the gadgets. Each sale bought him time and food, nothing more. The apartment began to empty. One evening he looked around and realized it was finally what it should have been all along. A hollow space that matched his heart. Some wounds never close completely, they simply stop bleeding. Some love stories don't end in reunion, they end in peace. And sometimes, God doesn't restore what you lost. He makes you whole without it. In this life, never destroy a heart that truly loves you. Because when love walks away, peace follows it. Chidi thought he was walking into happiness when he left his home. But what he didn't know was that he was walking straight into emptiness. Ngozi's forgiveness didn't mean weakness. It meant wisdom, strength, and grace. And when life humbled the proud man who once broke her heart, it was that same grace that gave him peace again. Remember this. No matter how far a person goes, life always finds a way to bring them face to face with what they've done. Not to destroy them, but to remind them that every choice comes with a consequence. African Tales by Ijele, where every story carries a lesson, and every tear teaches the heart how to love again. Please like, share, and subscribe.